Alright, we are so back. As usual, spoiler warning for episode 4 of Jetlag Soul. If you haven't watched it yet, please go do so. The rest of this video will contain lots of spoilers for that. So, with that spoiler warning out of the way, we'll start as usual with the recap. During my game analysis last time round, I predicted that Adam would go for either option 3, which was to go up to Yongju, or option 4, which was to confront the blockers directly at Dongdaegu. And indeed, he chose option 3 and made a beeline for Cheongyangni. This turns out to be fairly optimal, given what Sam and Ben did, so kudos to Adam for that. I think he would have considered option 4 more strongly if metagaming the runner rotation was on his mind. The whole having a 50% chance to start the next run if he's not in first place. But it seems like the Jetlag boys have not gotten to the point of metagaming this aspect of the game rules yet, so option 3 it is. Now, option 3 seems fairly optimal, and I think the Jetlag team hypes this particular service up to Cheongyangni as being insanely good, which, don't get me wrong, it is, right? This is not meant to be a high-speed line. The high-speed line is highlighted in yellow, so you would just assume that that the services to this way are slow and require multiple transfers and so on. But no, it was actually a direct service, and it got in at Cheongyangni super early the next day. So that was unexpected, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily the best option in a vacuum. I think there are some ways in which this route could have been countered, and not to mention that it doesn't rack up a lot of distance, right? By not going through Donghae, the northeastern corner of the map, Adam hasn't actually clocked enough distance to set a new high score yet. So we'll have to wait and see as he arrives in Yongsan. Even arriving at Yongsan, he's not going to clock a high score. He needs to beat the roadblock there first. The other thing is there is counterplay to this. As I've mentioned, Cheongyangni and Yongsan are fairly major choke points, and indeed, Sam and Ben have identified that as well. On that front, I find it interesting that they dropped the battle challenge first thing at Dongdaegu. I can understand their initial thought. Right, this is a very natural thing to do. The runner threatens a very dangerous run across the whole high-speed line should they pass the block at Dongdaegu. So it would make intuitive sense to deploy your strongest block at Dongdaegu, which is the battle challenge. Battle challenges are skewed in the blocker's favor, so I can understand it from that point of view. However, there's a big drawback to battle challenges, which is that it forces the blockers to stay put and wait for the runner to show their intentions before the blockers are freed from guarding that spot physically. Whereas with roadblocks, they can just, it's a once and done deal. They finish the roadblock, they can move on with defending the rest of the map. So I think had they dropped the roadblock here instead and saved up the battle challenge, they could actually have caught Adam with that battle challenge in Yongsan. I think battle challenges are best used when you know for a fact that the runner has only one option. In this case, as soon as Adam passed Jecheon and went up this line, he loses all optionality. As I keep mentioning, the best thing you want to do as a runner is to always threaten two possible different directions of travel at any given point. From Bongyang all the way to Yongsan, he loses that threat. He is railroaded, well, literally and figuratively, down this one route, and so it is guaranteed that any challenge placed down at Yongsan or Cheongyangni will have to be dealt with by the runner, and so this is the optimal place to place a battle challenge. So I think had they flipped the use of their blocks the other way around, what they could have done was not only to pose a greater challenge to Adam at Yongsan, but also by putting down a roadblock at Dongdaegu instead of a battle challenge, they could actually have left northwards earlier, namely on the first day. The runners started at 3:15 p.m. Once they arrived at Dongdaegu, they just spent the rest of the day there because they had to be physically there to keep the battle challenge active. If they had dropped a roadblock, they could have taken a late train out and started the day somewhere in Daejeon, for example. That would have given them more time to fortify the northern area. to recap the timeline of that day, on day 2, when the morning train started leaving, Sam and Ben departed Dongdaegu and they took the 7:15 train out to Osong, where they made a transfer. So, according to the train schedules, they could have made an 8-minute train transfer up to Yongsan, while Adam chugs along northwards from Yongchon all the way up to Cheongyangni. The thing is, I don't think they took this particular service. I think they took a later train that got in 21 minutes later than this train would have gotten them. I can tell they took the later train because this arrival timing coincides with Adam's Jecheon arrival timing. So when Adam arrived at Jecheon, he notified Sam and Ben, and you can see in the video that they acknowledged this while on the train platform at Yongsan Station. So they did take a later service. Why they did not take the earlier service? Well, we can only speculate. Perhaps this service was not in operation when the boys played the game 2.5 months ago, or perhaps they did not see that this train service was even an option. Either way, they lost 21 minutes of time, and this, foreshadowing a bit here, could be very crucial. So Adam passes Jecheon at 9:47. After that, Sam and Ben proceed to Yongsan and do the roadblock. Meanwhile, at 10:51, Adam arrives at Cheongyangni Station. He mentions that he's going to wait a few minutes for his transfer. Based on my research, that is underselling it. It's more than a few minutes. It's about half an hour. His transfer wouldn't get into Yongsan until 11:39. So the episode ends off with Sam and Ben staring forlornly into the departure board. The current time on the departure board is 11:17. That's when they realized that there were no trains heading south for the next 1 hour. Fun fact, the decision on the president impeachment was just a few minutes after this. So what we can see is that Adam has roughly 25 minutes to complete the roadblock. Between 11:39 and 12:07, it's roughly 25 minutes for him to buy some noodles, do the taste test, and if he can make it within these 25 minutes, then he can take the earliest trains out of Yongsan Station, meaning that the blockers cannot get ahead of Adam on the high-speed rail line. And if that's the case, we know that Sam and Ben are basically cooked. So with that context in place, let's do the game analysis for this upcoming episode. If Adam clears the roadblock, he'll set a new high score. Otherwise, he won't. That's all my analysis for this week. Thank you for joining. See you next time. Okay, I know that's not what you're here for. We'll do our proper analysis. But seriously though, if Adam doesn't complete his challenge successfully at Yongsan, that's the end of the story. There's not much to say after that. They are basically going to start again from Yongsan like they did on day 1, but later in the day. So everything from here is assuming that Adam successfully tastes the noodles. Conveniently, Sam and Ben have shown us the departure board from Yongsan Station, so we can work with that. As it turns out, the research that I'm doing on the Koryo website today perfectly lines up with the departures board. These are the trains that are heading out of Yongsan Station from 11:17 a.m. onwards, and I think much to the chagrin of the jet lag team, as it turns out, the train schedules were not affected by the presidential impeachment. These are simply the normal schedules from Yongsan Station. There is a dead zone from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. After that, during lunchtime, the trains resume running. That's how it goes. I don't make the rules. So these are the 6 trains. As you can see, the departure times line up perfectly. We can ignore the first and the last train because they're both going in the wrong direction. So we are just going to look at the 4 trains in the middle. As it turns out, all 4 of them stop at Iksan Station. We note that at this point, Sam and Ben have these 4 cards in the bottom left, including 1 curse and 1 roadblock. So that's what they have to play with. We also know that they are probably not going to draw any more cards unless they leave the high-speed network or if they hit Iksan Station, which is the only station left on the whole high-speed corridor that they have not visited yet. So if we plot the train routes of these 4 trains on the map, we'll notice something. Quite interestingly, the train that departs the earliest is actually the slowest, and the train that departs later is actually the fastest. They all go to Iksan, but the later trains actually move faster. I think the strategy for Adam is pretty clear. He should take... Now, at this point, we are just going to assume that Adam completes the noodle tasting challenge quickly, right? I don't know if that will be the case because Sam and Ben seem to take at least 1 hour on it between the shopping and the filming of the actual challenge. But assuming that Adam's able to complete the challenge very quickly, then the optimal strategy for him would be actually fairly straightforward. To simply take the first train out of each station he departs from, that is a high-speed train that is going in the right direction. So in this case, that is simply to take train number 2 out of Yongsan Station. But it's not as simple as staying on train number 2 all the way throughout the journey. You have to evaluate whether you are still on a high-speed train at every station you stop at. So this train number 2 stops at Gwangmyeong Station, which is over here. It's not a node. And the next stop it makes is Cheonan-asan. At either of these 2 stations, it would be optimal for him to get off and then wait for train number 3 or 4 to arrive, which will then pick him up and fetch him down this high-speed corridor down to Iksan Station. Because if he stays on train number 2, it will start making a detour down to Sodaejeon, and that is slow, and you don't want that. If Adam plays optimally as such, there is really nothing that the blockers can do, because the blockers cannot get ahead of him. Adam could also instead choose to transfer to another train, such as train number 5, that takes him down to Dongdaegu instead. This is also a viable option. I scoured through the train timetables trying to figure out whether it is more optimal for Adam to go down the Iksan route or the Dongdaegu route, and they really come up fairly even. There are not many pull factors one way or another. Because unfortunately for Adam, regardless of which route he goes, he's not going to be able to make a complete S shape or do a super epic snake, because the rail services at the southern coast of South Korea are really infrequent. Like, the train timings are just really bad between Gwangju Sojong and Suncheon, as well as Suncheon to Samnangjin. These trains, just take my word for it that the train timings are really bad, and if the runner gets cursed at any point along these routes, it's basically run over. The runner will hit the 20-hour time limit for their run before they can make it to even the next node. So it is I think it is very likely that the run will just come to an end more or less around Suncheon if he goes down the Iksan route, or in the southeastern area. So maybe Bujeon, Samnangjin, maybe Gimcheon if Adam decides to do a long roundabout this way instead of going southeast. All of them clock roughly the same distance, and yeah, it doesn't bring him very far. Basically, it is very difficult to, like, this route, this Samnangjin to Suncheon route clocks a lot of distance, but these trains will not make it to the next node until the next day. And Adam's run officially ends at around 11 a.m. the next day. That's when the 20-hour time limit is hit. So very unlikely that Adam can traverse the southern route unless unless the blockers really are not able to throw even a single curse down to slow Adam down. Right? But it's fine. Adam doesn't need to travel that far. Making it to Iksan or Dongdaegu is more than enough to clear the high score. Any extra distance he clocks after that is gravy. So what can the blockers do? Indeed, there is no safe play for the blockers, assuming Adam plays optimally and takes the fastest train out at each station. I suppose one thing they could do is to attempt to leapfrog Adam by dropping a curse down and forcing him off the current train. Using the previous example, Adam's optimal plan is to take the train down to Gwangmyeong, for example, and transfer to train number 3 or train number 4, get down to Iksan in the fastest possible time. However, if this line between Yongsan and Shonan Asan is cursed with the bug, curse of the bug, then at Gwangmyeong, Adam will be forced off. He'll be forced to go hunt for a bug, and you better hope that if you're the blockers, you'll be hoping that Adam spends at least 20 minutes finding a bug, because that will delay him enough to miss trains number 3, miss trains number 4. He disembarked off train number 2. So the next train he takes will be quite a while later, which hopefully gives the blockers enough breathing room to leapfrog Adam, take train number 3 or 4 down to Iksan and post the block there. A block on Iksan is guaranteed to intercept Adam, because no matter which train route he takes down to Iksan, all trains stop at Iksan. There are no trains that skip Iksan and go down to Gwangju, Sojeon, or Suncheon. They just don't exist. Iksan is a hub. So this would be reliable if not for the fact that most likely, if Adam takes roughly 20 to 30 minutes to clear the challenge, the next train out of Gwangmyeong Station is actually train number 5, which goes straight down to Osong, through Osong to Dongdaegu. So the roadblock at Iksan would be pretty useless. And nope, putting the roadblock at Shonan Asan instead does not help either, because as you can see from train route number 5 from Gwangmyeong, it goes straight to Osong and down to Dongdaegu. So there is no safe play the blockers can make. There are all sorts of high-speed rails that skip various stations. These four trains, 2, 3, and 4, all skip Osong, by the way. I didn't think there'd be any trains that skip Osong, but yes, trains 2 to 4 skip Osong. Some of the Iksan trains skip Chonan Asan, and those trains that go down to Dongdaegu don't stop at Iksan. Some of them skip Chonan Asan, and so on. There is no safe play. It's really bad for the blockers, right? I think a lot of it also depends on the game rules for battle challenges, because if you remember, there is a battle challenge that is waiting for Adam right here, and the question is, if the blockers predict this, or they know this for a fact because they use the tracker, the blockers do have a tracker card, and they know that Adam is going down to Dongdaegu, and they tag along this exact same train that Adam is taking down to Dongdaegu. If both the blockers and the runner arrive at Dongdaegu at the same time, will the battle challenge be triggered? That is a very important rules question, and I think the answer to that will shift the balance between whether Iksan or Dongdaegu is more viable of a strategy. But yeah, regardless, there is no safe play that the blockers can make. They can only do 50-50 predictions, guess whether Adam's heading down to Iksan or Dongdaegu, and set up their blocks accordingly and hope for the best. They also have to hope that the curse of the bug actually delays Adam for long enough. I suspect it won't be too difficult to find bugs out there, given that there seem to be reasonable amounts of green spaces just outside train stations in South Korea. So yeah, I'm not rating the blockers' chances very highly. Really, their best bet is to hope that Adam crashes out at Yongsan. Now, going back to what we were foreshadowing about the blockers earlier. According to the train schedules that we have seen, Sam and Ben arrived at Yongsan station at 9:46, but only completed the roadblock and saw that departure board at 11:17. This is a 1.5 hour gap. I personally find it rather hard to believe that they took this long to complete the roadblock. Sure, they had to draw the cards, they had to figure out that the navigate by heart roadblock was not going to work in Yongsan, so that definitely took some time. And then for the taste test itself, they needed to do some shopping around. They needed to visit 3 or 4 different shops to get the noodles they wanted. And of course, filming the whole taste test procedure does take time. I understand that. And as the blockers, you definitely want to take your time with the roadblocks to maximize your rate of success. That being said, 1.5 hours is a pretty long time. I do wonder if they actually completed their roadblock earlier and then spent some time looking through train schedules before filming the segment at the departure board at 11:17. Perhaps they completed it, say, 10 minutes earlier. But only, after 10 minutes of researching and finding out that, there's no train service out at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., then they started filming that section. I don't know. It's very hard to tell. But what I can say for sure is this. If they had, say, 10 extra minutes to spare after successfully completing the roadblock, and had there been an earlier service, this earlier service I was foreshadowing, where they depart from Osong 21 minutes earlier, they would have saved half an hour, and that would have allowed them to actually make the last train out of Yongsan in the morning. Because they missed this 10:53 timing window, they were forced to wait until the 12 p.m. trains, and that's where Adam can potentially catch up with the blockers. So this may well have been a key deciding factor in how this part of the game plays out. All this is pure speculation, of course. We don't know if the conditions on the ground were different, and can you really fault Ben and Sam for assuming there would be regular trains out of Yongsan Station? You have to keep in mind that while playing the game, Adam, Ben, and Sam all have a lot on their mind to deal with. Not just the routing, but also things like strategy behind playing the cards, filming. There's so much going on in the game, it's very intense. You can't expect them to have perfect knowledge on the train schedules from every single station in South Korea. That's not reasonable. Anyway, that's all I have. Here's all the train schedules for reference if you want to look things up yourself. Until next week, let's see how this plays out.